Hello, I would like to share with you 5 of the videos I found most beneficial and plan to use extensively in my future classroom. The first would be alternative passage reading procedures. Next, the read aloud wolf! Exclamation point. Third, summary writing using a frame. Next, I'll discuss vocabulary instruction. And lastly, I'll share with you what I found most beneficial in the decoding instruction video. Alternative passage reading procedures was very beneficial and informative to me. I learned several things. The first, I like the whisper reading technique because it allows students who may not be as confident in reading aloud where their peers can hear to whisper to the teacher, and it gives her the opportunity to assess the child's comprehension and fluency without them having to say it aloud. So I like that technique, and I think it works particularly well with struggling students. I also like the strategy of rereading the passage when the students got off task. The teacher did not disrupt her instructional time. Instead, she just reminded them that they were off task a little bit and that because of that reason they would reread the passage. And that's not a punishment. I think it reiterates and reinforces the passage that they just read. So there's a dual plus there. I like that strategy a lot, and I plan to use it in my future classroom. I also found the thumbs up to be very helpful. I like the fact of a full hand not being raised. If a child may not be as sure and certain about an answer and they raise their hand fully, other students may see it and they may feel embarrassed. But the thumbs up I like a lot because only one finger is lifted. I also like the thumbs up reminder. Some of the children began to raise their hand or raise the thumb up in the air, and the teacher reminded them to hold it close to their body, which reinforces the classroom procedures as well as the directives that were given prior to the start of the lesson. And I like how she subtly nudged them to bring them back in and follow directions. The Read Aloud Wolf is my favorite video. I like the way the teacher was animated. She allowed herself to be silly and vulnerable with her students. She did the voices. She was relatable. She was able to connect to her students. And I like how she just let herself be vulnerable. That is something that I personally have to work on. Sometimes I tend to be a little too stern and not really let my guard down and be relatable to the students, and that's something that I need to incorporate in the future. I like the way the teacher asked the students to make predictions prior to reading the story. They were allowed to use their imaginations and imagine what would happen. They also turned and talked to their neighbor. I like that. I think turning and talking gives students who may not have the best ability to sit still for long periods of time to kind of get the wiggles out. And if they're a little chatty, that allows them the opportunity to chat but not have meaningless conversation, chat about what's going on, and they remain engaged. I like that feelings were expressed During the reading of the story, the teacher was very animated, again, doing the voices and expressing how the wolf felt. I think by her modeling this, she inadvertently gave students the opportunity to express their feelings as well, especially regarding education. Sometimes students who are not as confident in learning tend to bottle feelings, and I think this was a way to have them relate to being frustrated during educational settings, and it gave them the opportunity and permission, if you will, to let it out and express themselves. When the teacher got to the part, and she read real fast like this, when she was talking about the wolf and how he read very fast and no one could understand him, that was also modeling for the students the importance of reading slowly and being fluent in their reading so they can read to understand as well as to be understood. I love that. Definitely will be used in my classroom. And lastly, I believe the Read Aloud Wolf builds confidence. Some of the students may have envisioned themselves the way the wolf envisioned himself when the other farm animals gave him accolades, kudos for being so well read. I think because the wolf didn't start out being a strong reader, at the end he was, and he was affirmed by his peers. It kind of encourages students who may struggle to continue to strive hard and also do well and build their confidence in reading. Next, summary writing using a frame. I like the fill in the blank concept that the teacher was demonstrating using the overhead projector. This also allows students to use context clues during reading. I may not know a word. The blank may represent an unknown word, but students could use the context clues that lead up to the story to figure out what the word may mean. Using a frame to write a summary also reinforces sequential order. This skill will help strengthen writing through the use of transitional words, and it will likely lessen repetition of words. Writers may not tend to overuse words because they'll become more familiar with the organizing phase of the writing process. I like the way the teacher promoted social skills by asking the students to take a sheet to each child. I like this idea because students are able to practice good manners by saying thank you when given a sheet, as well as allowing brief interaction between the giver of the sheet and the receiver. Again, got ahead of myself. I mentioned using the context clues in the summary writing using a frame. Words will lead up to the blanks would indicate unknown words, and students may be able to figure out those words based on context clues found within the sentence. And again, I previously spoke about sequential order or the transitional words, but please forgive me for the repetition. This will encourage students to not overuse words. The sequential order, what comes next, then afterwards, are words that suggest order and transitions. And once again, I'm repeating myself. The organizational phase of writing will become easier because students have built up those transitional words, transitional phrases. and the social interaction. I will repeat. The children would have an opportunity to say please and thank you when being given those sheets, when the teacher asked them to hand them out, and also a brief interaction between the giver and the receiver of the sheet. Vocabulary instruction. In addition to vocabulary instruction being well taught in this video, so was classroom management. The teacher noticed that her students were getting a little too talkative during the turn to your neighbor portion of her instruction. So I like the way she asked the children to stand and demonstrate the word ungraceful. This allows the children to move. They've probably been sitting a little too long, and they were able to get the wiggles out. Again, classroom instructional time was not interrupted. She just transitioned and incorporated it as a model within her discussion. I like that. And instead of calling out individual students and asking them to remain still or remind them that they're getting a little too antsy, she did it as a group, so that lessened the embarrassment of a child being singled out. I just spoke about the effective classroom management. I'm talking apparently too quickly before I'm transitioning slides, but again, the teacher had effective classroom management by asking the students to get up and kind of move around and just demonstrate the word ungraceful when she noticed they were getting a little too wiggly during the instructional time. And I mentioned the judgment-free zone. By the teacher doing this, asking everyone to stand, no one child was singled out. So the student who may get a little antsier than some of the others was not like, oh, it's me again, she's calling me down again. It's everyone stand, let's get it out. It was addressed as a whole, and no child was left to feel judged or embarrassed. And lastly, decoding instruction was very beneficial to me. I liked the way the teacher made word connections. For example, she used yell and yet. So the ye in yell as well as the ye in yet are the same, and just the word ending changes. It allows students to get familiar with words, and it'll increase the amount of words learned by the student, and again lessen the overuse of words. Building bigger words. I like the way the teacher sounded out had the class sound out a small word, then add a word ending to it to create a bigger word. Again, making that word connection is essential. And I also like the drip drop song that the teacher has the class sing in unison when they do a good job. I think positive affirmations are extremely important to children, as it encourages them to continue even if they're still struggling. Just acknowledging the fact that they are trying and making progress could mean a lot. So she has her drip drop song, but I plan to use this chant a lot in my future classroom, and it goes, good job, good job, good job, good job. Miss Pegues is proud of you. Good job, good job. Thank you.